Hi guys, so we're going to do two lessons in this video involving percents, the percent proportion, and the percent equation. So these are both things that you should have done last year. And we're going to talk about percent of change. So in our first slide here, our first objective is to learn how to write a percent as part of a whole. So you need to remember that the word percent means for each, and cent means 100. So we're talking out of 100 is what we're talking about. So percent means how many parts are out of 100. Okay, this is called our percent proportion. We are comparing our part to our whole, and that's equivalent to the percent out of 100. Can a percent be more than 100? Can you have more out of 100? Of course you can. We can have 200%, 300%, 250%. Okay, so now we're going to look at some examples. 125% of what number is 17.5? So we're going to learn how to do this the proportion way, which I think is easier for most of you, and the equation way. So the equation way is more challenging, and we will definitely practice more of those in class and practice writing those because those can be difficult. So the first thing when we're doing it, so I'm going to do one side here the proportion way. Here's our proportion. It's our part over our whole equals our percent over 100. Now hopefully you remember from last year, there is a hint. You should be able to read it and kind of figure out what the whole is. But the words that will help you is the word is will always be next to your part. And the word of will be next to the whole item that we're talking about. So we fill in what we know given the problem. We have 125%. So there's your percent. That's what's going to go over 100. So that's going to go there. Now we have to figure out where the 17.5 goes. And we're talking about 125% of something is 17.5. So the is 17.5, that's determining that that's your part. So there's our proportion. Now to solve a proportion, which we just did, you do your cross products. You get 125x equals 1,750. Divide both sides. And you should get, oh, I lost my thing. And x is 14, so our number is 14. Okay. Now, if we were to do this the equation way, what gets tricky is that you have to remember you can't work with a percent in the equation. You actually have to change your percent to a decimal. So we're going to translate our sentence here, this given sentence. 125% we're going to translate to a decimal, 1.25. Of in math means multiplication. What number? So of what number, that means times what number. How do we write that in math? We use a variable. So we get that times some number x. Is in math, is, hopefully we remember, means equals. And then we have 17.5. So now we're just going to write that a little bit better. It looks like this, 1.25x equals 17.5. Divide both sides by 1.25. You get that, x equals 14. So same answer. Actually, it looks like a little bit less work. Maybe it's just my font choice. But all right, so now I want you to try one on your own. I'm going to say I did the equation way underneath here. So let's see if you can try the equation way. You should pause, see how you do, check it. If you get it wrong, fix it. What percent of 90 is 54? So what percent? We don't know what that is. I'm going to my arrows to help you. What percent? That would be x out of 100 of 90 times 90 equals 54. Okay, so we need to now solve this. That's 60%. There you go. You could multiply both sides by 100 and then divide by 90. That would be how you would solve it. Okay. But remember here, like key, just as I'm looking at it, something I want to point out. When you're looking for the percent, you should always have an x over 100 so you don't forget that if you don't put that, it's going to be in decimal form and then you're going to need to move it into a percent. Okay. Number 2, write and solve a percent proportion. Okay, so we're doing proportion. Remember to keep your things in order like we did last time, thing 1, thing 2. A dress shirt that normally costs $38.50. You should be write this down. Write down the word problem here. A dress shirt that normally costs $38.50 is on sale for 30% off. What is the sale price of the shirt? So write that sentence down. Okay. 30% off. You need to think, what does that mean? Well, 30% off means that they're selling for 70% of the original price, because the whole thing is 100%. So if they're taking 30% off, you're left paying 70% of the original price. So 70% of, that goes in your over 100, 70% over 100 equals, and then you have to think of the $38.50, that's your whole, the whole thing. So we want to know what the piece now is. You do your cross products, you solve. Don't forget that this is a word problem, so when it's a word problem, I want units and I want a sentence at the end. So the sale price is $26.95. Okay, another word problem. A family sells a car to a dealership for 60% less than they paid for it. Okay, we got to think about that. 60% less. So now you got to think about what percent are we using here? How much is left? They're selling for 60% less. They paid $9,000 for the car, so that's another number. Where are we putting $9,000? Is that the whole or the part? Okay. If 60% less, you're left paying 40, so 40 out of 100 equals X over 9,000, because 9,000 is our whole. Cross products, solve. We get the car is sold for $3,600. Okay, percent of change, part 3. Percent of change, you need to make sure you identify whether it's an increase or decrease. So when you read the problem at the end, you need to write increase or decrease, but you solve it the same way. To find the percent of change, you do the change. So you subtract the two numbers, you put it over the original number, what it started out as, and then you multiply by 100. So change just means to subtract. Okay. Make sure at the end in your answer, and I'm going to do an example, that you write that it's an increase or a decrease. Oh, I didn't mean to delete. I meant to underline. Write if it's an increase or a decrease. Okay. This is going to be our last problem, and then we're done with the video. So, a store buys an electric guitar for $295. The store then marks up the price of $340. So, it went from $295 to $340. That's an increase. So, we got to remember at the end to write increase. What is the markup expressed as a percent of change? Okay, so the change between the two numbers, 340 minus 295, I always do the bigger minus the smaller, is 45. We put that over our original. It started out at 295. Multiply by 100. So divide them. Multiply by 100. You get 15.3%. And we have to make sure to write at the end there is a 15.3% increase. That's it. We're going to do a bunch more of these in class. Have a good one.